Hey, this is Moonlily Games here. I'm showing y'all my Amaterasu Electrodeity deck that we got top 8 with. I honestly fell in love with this deck a few weeks ago because Amaterasu is just, she's just amazing in all her forms. And if anyone says different, they're lying. So your buddy here is an affectionate deity Amaterasu. I only run 3 because honestly this deck goes through itself so very quickly. 99 out of 100 games you will end up with multiple Amaterasus in your hand every turn. She is very attack heavy with her one of her counters being to pay a life, draw a card, getting 6,000 attack and triple attack. Or she can actually be a very good defense where she gets in reverse, pay a life, draw a card, 6,000 defense and counterattack. That counterattack can be devastating to people. So you run 3. You run 3. You could run 4, but I honestly think 3 is plenty. You also run I also run 3 of the older Amaterasu. She is much more defensive and if you need in life, whereas your buddy Amaterasu will always cost you life for her abilities. This Amaterasu will either gain you life or gain you life in a card, or gain you a gauge and let her attack. With her, since her base attack is 0. So, with how this deck works is you switch out from these just about every turn. The lower life you are, the more likely you are to play these. But honestly, as long as you're above 1 life, you can play them both. So, the third Electrodeity that we play is this Electrodeity of Water, Mizu. I cannot say her full name, so I'm not going to try. This is for more of your Garga decks or more aggressive decks where you use this to rest at the beginning of battle phase where appropriate. You rest a monster in your opponent's field and gain 2 life. If you couldn't tell, there's a lot of life gain. Or you can bounce a monster and deal your opponent a damage. Bouncing seems good in this format from what I can tell. When you can bounce, it's usually good to do so. So I run her at 2. Because you mostly want one of the Amaterasus, but this is perfectly acceptable. And onto our 2s. We only run 1 2. We run 4 Guardian Electro Beast Goryu. Goryu comes into play. You look at top 3 cards, put 1 in your hand, 2 in the drop. She's just value. You can only play 1 a turn, but she's just straight value. You run 4, you run 4, you run 4. We run no 1s, but we do run some 0s. We run this Electro Beast Emissary. This is, because of how this deck works, your Amaterasu will always be considered an item. So this will boost Electrodeity items by 3,000 and 3,000. This can help you get over Max Dragons or Lost World monsters. With the Soul Guard, it gives it a bit of survivability. So overall, it's usually a good boost to your items when you need it. Last monster we play is Electro Beast Emissary Aurora. I think that's how you say it. These names are weird to me. I'm sorry. This is just card generation. It's if you have Electrodeity out, which you should always have your item equipped, which we will get to next, is just draw a card, gauge 1, draw a card. Just gauge 1, draw. It's just perfect. Then we get to our item. This is your bell. This is what makes your deck work. When you equip this bell, at the beginning of every main phase, you take a size 3 Electrodeity and equip it as an item. That is the whole point of your deck, is to take the various Amaterasus, or the Electrodeity of Water, or some people run Susanoo, is to make them an item. And it prevents, the only way to get rid of Amaterasu is to bounce her. So it prevents a lot of destruction effects, and it just gives you a pretty good shield. Because this Amaterasu can get up to 14,000 defense, the others can get to 12. This also, at the end of every turn, you bounce whatever is on it to your hand, and this returns to as the item. So you can switch out whatever Electrodeity you need by a turn-by-turn basis. This item is 100% necessary for this deck. If you need to have it turn 1. Then we go on to our spells. This right here it's okay. I like this spell. It's counter, either give monsters on your opponent's field -3,000, -3,000, -1 crit, or destroy a spell or item on your opponent's field. I like the versatility here because sometimes they're able to link attack and just get over Amaterasu's defense. This can bring it back down. Or if they have set spells that they really need or an item that you can destroy, this is just a good way to bounce that not bounce, destroy. Next we have Divine Wall. Divine Wall is just exactly what it is. It's a wall. It buffs your Electrodeity item, which will be Amaterasu usually, and gives it counterattack. So usually you play this to prevent possibly lethal damage and also probably take something out along with it. We run one of the counter spell because we can only run one. If you could run four, you run four, but you can only run one. It's pay 2 life counter spell. It's honestly probably one of the best cards in Katana World, and with Amaterasu, it's essentially free. Next, we play one Electrodeity City. It prevents resting of your Electrodeity items, and then when this card itself is destroyed, it'll get you a monster back. It's pretty useful. It prevents a lot of times people try and rest Amaterasu since they can't bounce her or they can't destroy her. This is a good way to prevent that, and it can really save you sometimes. Next we have Return. Return will let you pay a gauge, get 2 differently named Electrodeity monsters or items from your drop to your hand. 99% of the time, it's one of those cards that's going to be Goryu, and the other will be one of the zeros. You shouldn't ever need to get the bell. If you need the bell, you get the bell, or an Amaterasu if it's ended up in your drop somehow. This is honestly, I think, my favorite spell in this entire deck. The Electrodeity Welcome. You pay 1 life, gauge 3, and then you may go look into your gauge and take 1 card from it and put it in your hand. This can unbrick you extremely fast. This is honestly one of the best cards I've seen in this world. If you need an Amaterasu, you can go look for one. If you need an item turn 1, you can go do that. You need just about anything you need. You can go look for your gauge. And usually with this deck, you will have a fairly significantly sized gauge. Then we run this also at 4. Electrodeity Festival. This is, if you have this in your opening hand, it's probably the best time to have it. Its first effect is go get an Electrodeity item, which you will go get the bell. It's your only item, as you need the bell. Once you have the bell, it also can stand an Electrodeity item. So if you have Amaterasu out, and if you need, she gives herself triple attack, or the other gives double. If you just need another attack here, you just counter, stand, swing again. This can end games. Ritual of Harvest Prayer is a really nice draw spell. Pay 1 gauge, draw 2 cards. If you have an Electrodeity item, which will be your Amaterasu, with a soul, that's the important thing, and it has to have the soul, which will be the bell, you draw the extra card. So this is basically pay 1 gauge, draw 3 cards. The only time that you would only draw 2 cards, but if you play this first turn, that's the only time you usually will not have an Electrodeity on your bell. You have to play 2 Cherry Blossom Dance. Cherry Blossom Dance is also one of your set spells. Your opponent cannot call monsters from their drop zone, which is relevant in some decks, not so relevant in others. The other main effect is, if an item, which will be your Amaterasu, would leave the field, you would make this leave instead. This helps you prevent the bounce effects. So they would have to essentially bounce your card twice, which is usually harder for a lot of people to do. So this can save you. And then we play 4 of this defensive spell, which I really love against decks like Garga that are going to swing a lot. You counter, you nullify the effect. Then if you have an Electrodeity item with a soul, you gain 1 life, you gauge 1, and then you prevent whatever card, does not say monster, it says card from standing. So Lost World items, it can be a big problem with triple attack, or Max Dragons, or Garga, so it's very useful. This card will save you. Then we run 2 of the Impact. This Impact can be a real game finisher, because if you set up this, it's usually I would set it up with this Amaterasu specifically to give her the triple attack, and plus she'll be 14,000 power triple attack. You play this, you do not attack with this battle phase. If you're going to set up for this, when you go to final phase, you don't attack with this. This will let you swing on your final phase and give her a crit or 2 crit. So she'll swing 5 3 times. That's 15 damage. And if you have the other spell to stand, that's 20 damage. That will end most games. Because this card, as long as Amaterasu is attacking alone, the damage cannot be prevented and the attack cannot be nullified. So that gave me 49 cards. This is where my favorite tech of the card case, you play 1 Lost World flag. Yeah, you play 1. Because honestly, you don't often need the second. With how much this deck draws, how often you can search the gauge, the only way you will not have access to this if it somehow ends up as the last card of your deck, or it will never end up at the drop unless you put it there. So you only need 1. And then once you go into Lost World, I run 1 Epoch Vanity, because Max Dragons, and honestly this card is just 100% pure value. It can honestly just end games immediately once you play it. I also run 2 of the Trial Deck Vanity, which is very, very good. The bounce effect and the destroy effect with the double when it attacks it with having double attack can just destroy people's boards. It can end set spells. It can do a lot for you. Play 1 the Skull. You can swing with it. It'll pop everything it can. With how the format is right now, that's next to nothing usually. I like it because it's 5 crit. It's 30,000. It can't be rested. It can swing over most things. It can swing over a Max Dragon. It can swing over other Lost World cards. It's just 5 crit. That's just always nice to swing. I play 1 of this guy. This guy is... He's kind of borderline for me. He's alright. The not letting your opponent draw from monster effects is only good against certain matchups. I know there's some Magic World decks that have a lot of cards that do that, and some other decks, but he's okay. There are better options, but this guy will make people cry. This guy, when he swings, will force your opponent to discard a card, and discarding cards is never fun. Just swing him twice, make him discard 2 cards. Real simple. This guy will make you happy. He has triple attack, and when he swings, you draw a card. Drawing 3 cards while swinging a giant 15,000 monster just feels really, really good. We play one of this. It's honestly becoming one of my favorite Lost World cards because I just seen the utility of it back in Atlanta. It's like just nullify and destroy something. Just the value you can get off that is just huge. Honestly, I probably would bump him to 2. This card is interesting. This is a counter. When you play this, you can counter drop a card to bounce something on your opponent's field. Where bouncing is important, like say against the mirror match, bouncing, if you can, sometimes will just save you or just end games. And the last Lost World monster here, Ralphface, when he comes into play, he destroys items and spells. I know against Angels, that was very helpful for me for some of their set spells. And when he dies, he destroys monsters. Honestly, sometimes putting that down to just get rid of some spells or some items, it's just the value there is just good enough for him. Then we move on to spells. Day of Destruction. Day of Destruction can just save your life. Just prevent They find some way to get rid of your stuff. It's like this is just the answer you need. Dimension Denial. This is just a nope card. You just nope something. This can just prevent people's combos from coming off, and it's always very, very nice to have. Especially in Katana World, where we're only allowed to one nullify spell. So, Dimension Breeding, just good card advantage. You gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It's just good advantage right there. You just need to have Lost Vaders on your field. Invasion from the Deep and Vile. This is a good way to dig through your Lost World deck. Top 4, 2 to hand, 2 to gauge. If you had once you want a Lost World, I like to try and keep, if possible, one of the spells from earlier that let you search the gauge, because with this, and you just go back there and you just keep going wherever you want. 1 Vanity Cells, because it's a nullify spell in itself, so that's always useful. And just in case anyone tries to Gargantua Punisher, or if you're facing against Lost World and they try to Vanity Zero Blazer you, I would always run at least 1, because it can really save you. Dimension Cruelty. This is versatility. This is either gauge, stand one of your dudes, rest one of theirs, or drop 2 soul. I think the drop 2 soul is very, very important against some matchups like Garga or some other decks, but it's like this is one of the best Lost World cards in my opinion. Dimension Jamming. Make your opponent discard cards and they will have a sad time. That's kind of all you need to know. It's the less cards your opponent have, the better it's for you. Dimension Wave. One of your better ways to get Epoch out or trying to search for things, just blow something up, monster on your field. Maybe one of your Lost Vaders that just has an enter the battlefield effect. You get to gauge 2, gain 2 life, draw a card. Just really useful in situations where you need to try and dig deeper. 2 Dimension Mirror. Another nullify spell, but it also reflects the damage back. So if you're going up against someone like Max Dragon, who are swinging 4 or 5 crit, or against a big Amaterasu, or against even just anything with big crit, just swing it back in their face, and you might just kill them like that, or at the very least take a good chunk of their health away. Then 2 Dimension Zagain, I believe you're saying, nullify spells, get you a Lost Vader back from your drop, which can be really useful. It's like you cannot get Dimensions Zagain back, but if you play Dimension, play it, get Dimension Mirror back, or any other Lost Vader you need. Just a good way to put something back in your hand. Finally, 2 Vanity Zero Blazer, because just end the game. Just pay 3 gauge, deal them 10, just make this game over.
I got bad news.